Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official audio program of NotHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, Kirk Buchner, aka The Buck, and we're going to do something a little bit different for 2020. Every week, every Thursday, we're going to record this, and then every Saturday it should go up on the site, where we're going to be looking at the news of the week pertaining to all of the Halls of Fame that we talk about. Of course, that includes the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame, Hockey Hall of Fame, and the Basketball Hall of Fame, and really anything else that seems Hall of Fame related. Evan Nolan is going to join us each week, and I hope you enjoyed this as much as I do. Here's our first show. Evan, it's time for a new adventure here at NotHallOfFame.com. The Buck Stops here. Are you ready?
As ready as I'm ever going to be, I think.
What's the drink you have ahead of you?
I'm being super lame. It's a new year. I'm now officially into my early middle age now that I am 41. And since it's a Thursday night, I am drinking water at the moment.
I'm equally as lame only because I drank all my beer today. I have Sprite. Sprite. If LeBron James can drink it, although you never see him actually drink it in the commercial, he just tells people to drink it.
Yeah, he wants you to obey your thirst. He doesn't actually,
Well,
he's too good. He transcends normal human thirst.
That is true. He tells us to obey the thirst, and he in turn obeys China. But that's another story.
You can get Steve Kerr mad at you, man.
Oh yeah. Well, he can get in line. So this is going to be episode 1 of the new endeavor, where it's just going to be a 30-minute Hall of Fame chat. Not just anything specific, but sort of news of the week. In the winter, there's going to be a lot more to say. In the summer, we're going to be scrounging. But so be it. That's just how the Hall of Fames work. So I thought I'd sort of gauge your perception right away on sort of the biggest announcement of the last week, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the finalists that they've announced. What do you think?
I think that I'm pretty happy with the finalists here. Looking at them all, looking at the semifinalists, there are only three big surprises to me who didn't go from the semifinalists to the finalists. Mm-hmm. I thought since this would be Pasker's last year, I believe, of eligibility, he would advance past that, but he did not. I was hoping that Clay Matthews seemed to have a ton of online support this year, kind of out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. I was hoping that would get him passing through, because I have a feeling if Clay Matthews ever actually showed up and got debated in the room, he'd go from not getting off the semifinalist to just getting in right away.
Yep.
Because his numbers are nearly identical to Brian Urlacher's. And Urlacher was a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but Matthews had a lot more years to do that.
That is true. That is true. But I mean, it's interesting. I thought he'd at least get off just because of that. And the third one, I think the one that shocked kind of everybody, was Patrick Willis not getting through on the first time. I just kind of presumed that we're going to have 3 first-time nominees. Not that they'd all get in, but I thought it would be Willis, Wayne, and Polamalu. Mm-hmm. And I was a little surprised to see that Willis, if one of the 3 wasn't making it through, I thought it might be Wayne just because the number of wide receivers are out there. But I was surprised to see it was Willis who didn't get through.
Yeah,
which was actually okay, because Zach Thomas got through, and I think Zach Thomas certainly deserves to at least be a finalist. So
no, absolutely. So selfishly, but I'm really happy that Zach Thomas sort of got through. I think he was one of the biggest snubs not to even make the semis up until 2 years ago. I never quite understood that one. I'm also with you. I thought Patrick Willis was going to get a little bit more love, and I thought that they would sort of buy into the Clay Matthews hype. Also, it's his final year of eligibility. So he now moves into the senior. Yeah, so he now moves into the senior pool, which actually might make it a little bit easier.
Maybe, but I just feel like the senior pool. I know that we're doing a little bit of a cleanup, but I feel like the cleanup that's happening is going to involve a lot of seniors who haven't really had any major push behind them, other than maybe I think Randy Gradishar is probably getting in just from everything I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. But a lot of these people like Cecil Isbell and the guy's name is Ox, whose last name I can't think of right now.
Emerson.
Like those guys, the people. Yeah, Ox Emerson, thank you. Those are people who have never, ever appeared on the ballot before.
Right.
Like going into this, I think I've said this before, going into this, there were only, including the 10 guys who didn't make it last year, there are only 40 people who have ever been on a ballot for the Pro Football Hall of Fame who haven't made it in. But I think of all the players who've been inducted and everything, there are only 40 people before this huge list who haven't made it in. And I feel like we're going to end up clearing out only one or two of those people. And then there's just a bunch of people who haven't even been considered yet, who now Matthews and Tasker can go up against. I actually think this is better news for Tasker, because I think it's going to be easier for them, like when Ray Guy got in, to put the special teams guy up for an up or down vote, as opposed to another linebacker, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I totally do. I'm wondering, and Vinny Laspinuso and I, we were talking about that on the last show. We're sort of hoping, and I'm sure you feel the exact same way, we're hoping that this is going to lead to a larger senior contingent sort of getting in, because it's either one or two. Hopefully they'll look at three, possibly more. And, just from the basic thing of numbers, and I'm sort of a numbers guy. I guess maybe that's why I love baseball so much. And the sheer amount of players that participate in an NFL season is way over 1,000. So there's no reason why it can't be the largest hall of the Big Four. It should be. And it's not. I'm not even sure that it is in terms of actual members. You'd think I'd know that answer. I don't.
I think basketball is actually the largest, if I remember this correctly. But basketball inducts like 73 people a year.
And usually you've heard of 3 of them.
Yeah. Well, but basketball also will induct entire teams.
That's true.
So you'll have one nominee that's actually like 17 people. So I think basketball is the biggest. But yeah, it's kind of amazing how many. I like the list. There's a few people on there who I'm hoping get in out of this. I think you and I kind of agree on who we think is getting in. Correct?
We have the exact 5. We are.
Yeah.
And just to sort of recap and make sure that I have that right, and we were doing this over Twitter, so like I might have this forgotten, but I know I've predicted Atwater, Bruce, Faneca, Palomalu, Seymour. Those were my 5.
Yeah, that's exactly ones I have. I think, as I said, I think Palomalu just walks in to the hall as a first ballot. I mean, there's no reason to keep him out. Then you're going to have one of the offensive linemen. It could very well be Hutchinson.
It could be.
Like Hutchinson and Faneca, to me, are both incredibly great candidates. Baselli is too, but Baselli's resume is just too short compared to those other two guys. So I think it's Faneca. I was surprised it was Mawai last year. Not that Mawai doesn't deserve to be in. I just thought Faneca would be first. And so since he's still there, I think Faneca's over Hutchinson, but that's a coin flip, and really in that one. Then when it comes to wide receivers, I know Wayne is up there for the first time, but there's a lot of, like, Jim Trotter was on NFL Network when they announced the finalists. He made a point of saying we need a whole bunch of people who are about the same. He made a point of voting for the person who's been waiting the longest. And that is a feeling I've gotten before about the guys in that room. They want to make sure people who are deserving don't have to wait too long. And with the wide receivers out there, Bruce has easily been waiting the longest and definitely deserves to get in. So I think he'll get in. But even though Holt was on the second team for the decade for the 2000s over Bruce, Holt just hitting the finalists for the first time. So I think Bruce gets out of the way first.
Yeah.
And then the other two is just a crapshoot as to who, looking at the list, who do I think it's going to be? So yeah, like I said, I had Seymour, and this is Atwater's last year as well.
It's not his last. It's not his last year. I'm trying to think how many more he's got.
Okay.
He's reaching that point,
right,
but he's not there.
He's getting close. But Atwater is all decade team. Actually, so is Leroy Butler. Both those guys were all decade team for the 90s for the league, and both of them are on this ballot. So they need to get one and the other one in. I think if you're first team all decade, unless you're at some weird position, you should probably be getting into the hall at some point. And so they have to start clearing those guys and putting them in. So
Yeah, and I would like to see them sort of like expand this to a little bit more than 5, maybe 8 a year. But we'll see. Two things sort of stuck out with me. One, I was really happy that Torrey Holt became a finalist. He was certainly
Mm-hmm.
deserving, and he's always blocked by Bruce somehow. I'm not completely certain how they sort of deduced almost automatically that Bruce goes ahead of Holt, because I don't know that it's that cut and dry. But I'm happy that Torrey sort of made that thing, and the one thing that sort of was a bit of a head scratcher, I never would have thought in a million years Bryant Young would beat some of the other guys at this spot. He's the one guy I just don't see advancing. I don't see him getting through. What do you think?
No, I don't think Bryant Young gets through. Yeah, Bryant Young was probably the one I was the most surprised to see on the list altogether. I mean, do you think if you had to choose between Bryant Young and, let's say, Simeon Rice, who hasn't been in the ballot but was one of the semifinalists, I'd take Rice pretty much every time. And he didn't get through. So yeah, I was a little surprised with Young. I think I said last year that after Law got in, that now that Law broke the seal on the Patriots defenders from the first part of the dynasty, which may or may not have ended last week. That it would help Seymour get in because there wouldn't be another guy up against him. And I guess Bryant Young is there, but I don't think when you compare Bryant Young and Seymour, I think Seymour clearly has the better number. So it may actually end up helping Seymour get in this time too.
At least your team has a dynasty. I can't say that as a Saints fan that it's a dynasty. So so that was sort of in reference. I tweeted dynasty over because I do think it's over. And then the next day after the Saints did, so the dynasty over. So didn't have a dynasty, man. They had a really good quarterback and made a lot of playoffs. One Super Bowl, a dynasty does not make.
Yeah. Well, going back to this, though, by the way, the one thing that I hope happens out of this is the great thing about the list of the 15 finalists is they're all players. And we've gotten now, they had separated out the owners and all those other folks a couple years ago, but you still had Coryell and the other coaches in there. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that they've separated out the coaches as well. So we can actually get 15 players in and then have whatever categories they have for executives, coaches, whoever it is, separately. Because I think that is an improvement, which allows more people to get on. Because, I mean, last year we had 5 guys get in. We had 2 coaches still. But so this year we have 7 new guys, which is a lot better than previous years where people are just struggling, like Torrey Holt not getting on. Torrey Holt's not been on this ballot. It is Don Coryell's been on the ballot. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, that's the reason he couldn't get through is that there's 50, instead of 15 players up, there's only 13 spots. And good players are getting squeezed out. So
yeah, hopefully they do that in the future. To my knowledge, they haven't announced how they're sort of looking to do that. But that sort of like is a perfect segue into the Centennial Slate finalists, they're calling that, which will be announced Wednesday at 8 in the morning at the same time as another thing that we'll close the show with. So they're separating that with coaches, players, and contributors. 2 coaches will get in out of this group, the aforementioned Coryell, Bill Cowher, Tom Flores, Mike Holmgren, Jamie Johnson, Buddy Parker, Dan Reeves, Dick Vermeil. I've got Coryell and Flores. What do you think?
I think Coryell and Flores are a good choice. I got Coryell. I don't know who that second person is going to be. If it's Jimmy Johnson, I wouldn't be shocked. If it's Mike Holmgren, I certainly wouldn't be shocked. I think it's Don Coryell and somebody. Mm-hmm. But I don't think some of these guys, like Flores was up last year as a finalist, so they at least have had some recent discussion about him. Some of these guys have never necessarily ever been in the room to discuss. So I don't know exactly how the committee's going to feel about any of them. But I think it's Coryell and somebody getting it. I just can't tell you who that second person is.
I think a sleeper in this group is Cowher.
Yeah. But, yeah, I'd say Cowher too. But when you put Cowher up against Holmgren, I think Holmgren's overall body of work is greater than Cowher's. Mm-hmm. So
I'd agree.
And Cowher and Holmgren are direct contemporaries. So I think both will get in eventually? Yes. But out of this situation, just because Holmgren still is on the list, I think Cowher's going to have to wait. So.
All right, so we've got contributors. Three of these gentlemen will get in: Bud Adams, Ralph Hay, Frank Bucko Kilroy. Gotta love that name, Bucko. Art McNally, Art Modell. Cleveland would love that after Clay Matthews not getting through. Clint Murchison, Steve Sable, Seymour Siwoff, Paul Tagliabue, and George Young. Who do you got?
Yeah, I think that the easiest person to put through is Steve Sable out of this list.
Totally.
His dad's already in. Steve, unfortunately, he was there for his dad's initiation, but he's not around anymore. He died far too young. But he, in many ways, for coverage of football, for NFL films, was incredibly instrumental. I also was surprised that John Facenda hadn't shown up, just because his voice is synonymous with all those old videos.
That's a
one
good
of the
one.
owners is getting in. I wouldn't surprise me if it's Bud Adams over Modell. But Modell is certainly someone who they've considered multiple times before. And then I think George Young, who's been a finalist a couple times before, is somebody they're going to look closely at as general manager of some very important Giants teams. They have most of the rest of those Giants guys in. And now that they've, last year, when they put in, surprisingly, I know it's a little bit weird to say this, but when Gil Brandt got in as one of the architects of those Cowboys teams, the architect of the Giants teams, George Young, sticks out a little bit more. So it wouldn't surprise me those three, although if they're trying to make this like the whole hundreds, like they did with the 100 team, it wouldn't surprise me if a Bucko Kilroy or somebody got in just so they could say, hey, we've covered the whole gamut. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And Kilroy could have been placed in the player section easily.
True. Yeah, true.
And that may very well help him here. I'm not really sure how they're sort of looking at this. I can't see how it hurts.
No. Agreed.
Yeah. So we've got 20 players, half of which will get in. So we'll just go through them again alphabetically. We got Cliff Branch, Harold Carmichael, Jimbo Covert, Roger Craig, Bobby Dillon, Laverne Dilweg, Ox Emerson, Randy Gradisher, Cliff Harris, Winston Hill, Cecil Isbell, Alex Karras, Vern Llewellyn, Tommy Nobis, Drew Pearson, Donnie Shell, Duke Slater, Max Speedy, Ed Sprinkle, and Al Wistert.
Yeah, one person who I'm, like I said before, I'm almost positive is getting in is going to be Gradishar.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, again, to determine how many of the old school guys are getting in, particularly guys who've never had a name up before. One of the people who I never honestly heard of and then read a whole bunch about once he came up was Laverne Dilweg, because that name is amazing. But he was basically the greatest player who's not in the Hall from like the 20s, the early decade of football. Is he someone who ends up getting in with this group, even though I guarantee you most of the people in the room have absolutely no idea who he is. Well, so it's going to be interesting to see, particularly since if Belichick is in the room, I feel it's going to be easier for some of the older guys are waiting a long time, who've never shown up before, to get in than anyone else, just based off of his love of the history of the game and the way if you saw that NFL 100 all-time team, he just knew everything about everybody. It was professorial and kind of amazing. As a Patriots fan, and whenever he steps down, he just needs to retire and just do a show where he tells us all about the way that Ox Emerson and Cecil Isbell and all those other guys were playing back then, and what blocking schemes they're using, and it'd be amazing it'd be professorial for us to learn. But it's hard to know with all those people. But the one person I almost positive getting is Gradishar. And then it's in many ways kind of a crapshoot. All those guys deserve 90% of those guys I could say easily deserve to be in, but I have no idea exactly how it's going to balance against everything else. Do you have a preference? Do you have a preference for who I think should get in?
Yeah, I think who would make you happy out of this group?
Who would make me the happiest to get in out of this group? I'd say, Duke Slater and Max Speedy have been up multiple times. It'd be great to see both of them get in. But honestly, on a personal level, of a player who I actually watched, it's hard for me to imagine those 49ers teams of the 80s being as great without Roger Craig.
That's my guy too. I am super passionate about that. Especially when I see a guy like Christian McCaffrey right now doing what he's doing on that whole true dual threat. It's Craig. I don't know why he didn't get in before. I guess they were looking at overall numbers as opposed to impact, which usually is sort of the opposite way that they do things because they usually look at impact instead of overall.
Right. Well, but I mean, Terrell Davis got in, and that's entirely impacted on overall numbers.
Absolutely.
So,
and Tony Baselli is pretty much a finalist every year based on impact, not an overall.
Right. Yeah, and another one who I'm also kind of rooting for is Donnie Shell. I just, again, watching all those old NFL films, that he was just a beast. So Donnie Shell is someone else who I'm looking at, and it would be nice to see him get in.
Was there anyone who wasn't chosen for senior finals that you would have liked to have seen here?
I mean, is there a real quarterback on this list anywhere?
No, there's not. The only one that sort of had there was two that I sort of thought might have a really good shot: Roman Gabriel and Ken Anderson.
Yeah, Ken Anderson's the one who I was going to say is the most surprising person on here. A couple other people have been on here a bunch of times. It would be nice to see Bob Kuchenberg, who got to the final five once and didn't get through.
Recently deceased, I believe.
He recently passed away. L.C. Greenwood's been a finalist 7 times. Charlie Connerly's been a finalist 8 times. Lester Hayes has been 5 times. Like, some of those guys have been up multiple times. It's nice for them to have a chance at an up or down vote. Just to, have them have a decent shot of getting in. Clark Shaughnessy's 4 times. So it would be nice to see those guys get in. But, honestly, there was a lot of focus on the whole history of the game.
Right.
And so some folks had to be squeezed out. I think Ken Anderson being left off may actually help him because there's been a lot of hue and cry about that on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, well, he didn't get a chance last year. Let's put him up this year and see what happens. So be interesting. But yeah, I would say that Anderson was the one who is most surprising not to be there.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think a lot of the older time ones, I think they're going to have a much better shot because of, let's just say, the Belichick effect, because they're really looking at the true history of the game, the pre-Super Bowl era. And there's a lot of these names on that. Yeah.
That's who most of these people are.
Mm-hmm.
So, it'll be interesting. I, of course, love closing out classes. So if we can get, a Max Speedy in or a Duke Slater or some of those guys, it will make it easier to close off some of these old classes that have, still have a few people outstanding.
Yeah, no.
So, Max Speedy, the class of 83 would all be in if Max Speedy got it, for example. So everyone was nominated back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sort of hoping that'll happen. And again, that day coming on the 15th, I think it's actually happening at the exact same time because they're going to be announcing this on the NFL Network. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I believe at the same time frame at 8 in the morning on the 15th, we'll be announcing the class of 2020, which I'm trying to think here, Evan. Is this the first time they've actually announced the class during the actual calendar year?
Yeah, I think it is because they used to do it back in December,
right?
But the performance, the actual induction ceremony, was a month later than they've been having it in the past, and so they decided to keep essentially the same time period between when the announcer was and when the actual concert and induction ceremony is.
Okay.
So but I think as far as I know, this is the first time that the 2020 went through. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what they come up with, particularly since the band who's won the online vote every single year has gotten in. And this year was Dave Matthews Band, who doesn't have the rock and roll profile as previous winners like Rush and Journey and Bon Jovi and people like that. It'll be interesting to see if essentially a rock and jam band, with one which I know is not your favorite. Still uses that in an effort to get there.
He's just got such a punchable face. So do I.
Yeah. As I've said before, my wife just thinks that his albums are just one long song that they put pauses between for track listings. So,
it worked for AC/DC.
It'll be interesting to see who all this group gets in. I'm positive of two of them after looking at everything online. I think Notorious B.I.G. and Pat Benatar are both getting in.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, there's been a lot of support for Kraftwerk online. I don't know if that actually translates into them finally getting in, but it's weird because it seems like you and I both vote every week on the Tuesday Lose Day thing for Who Cares About the Rock Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And Kraftwerk was almost never mentioned by anybody as someone who should be voted out. And they had their final five came up, and Kraftwerk was there, which is interesting. Everyone seems to understand what their importance is in the history of development of popular music in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this will spread enough to the other folks that they will actually get them in. So we'll see.
I think one of the two metal bands is getting in between Judas Priest and Motorhead. I think it'll be Priest.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think it's going to be Priest over Motorhead.
I think it's going to be Priest as well.
Yeah. And
then we're going to have some 70s band. It's got to make it, right?
Well, the Doobies sort of like fill that category that I like to call long time, first time. You know, they've been eligible for seems forever. They've been eligible so long that you could legally have sex with it, and now they're not one of my better ones, but hey.
Are you sure you haven't been drinking? No, but yeah, I mean, the Doobies seem like that, but I mean, Thin Lizzy and T-Rex are contemporaries, at least. So you never know. Would it shock you if Thin Lizzy got in over the Doobies?
No, not at all.
No. I'd be a little more surprised with T-Rex. It wouldn't surprise me somehow Depeche Mode snuck in either. And who knows how many we're going to have. We could have 5, we could have 7 for all we know, depending on however they want to fudge the list. But yeah, my guess is it's going to end up being, I think, Judas Priest, Kraftwerk, Pat Benatar, Notorious B.I.G., one of the 70s bands, and maybe they figure out a way to get Todd Rundgren in, whether it's musical excellence or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we'll probably have a class of 6 is my guess.
I got the sneaking feeling Whitney's going to sneak in somehow.
She could.
But not at the expense of Pat Benatar.
No, Pat Benatar's getting it.
Yeah. Because if it's one of those things where they really want to sort of increase the women group women percentage, even though I'll say that the women percentage is perfectly fine the way it is, which I know isn't a very popular thing to say. It's currently 7.2%.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, for every great female group, I can come up with 10 great male ones. Most people can.
Yeah, I think you and I just discussed this before, where most of the female inductees tend to be solo artists,
right?
Whereas many of the male inductees, I mean, there are clearly Peter Gabriel and apparently now every member of the Beatles and everyone have solo careers that they get in as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the vast majority of men getting in tend to be in groups. And in the early years, there were more groups like the Chantels and the Marvelettes and
Supremes,
the Supremes
and
whoever it is. There are more girl groups there than there are now. And not to say there aren't. I mean, they could go get the Go-Go's. They could go...
there's a lot of great women and female acts that haven't been sort of come up yet, or that haven't been inducted yet, that qualify. There's so many of them, but there's just so many, period.
Right. Yeah. And it gets harder every year because you add another they put 5-6 bands in, and then, like I told you, my spreadsheet, literally this year there were 96 bands that got added.
Well,
they were taking 6. So that means you have everybody else left, and the opening of the ball is not getting any bigger, but there are more people pushing from the back.
Yeah, and you're never going to satisfy everybody. I do feel, though, since I started doing this about 7-8 years ago, it's a hell of a lot better than it was.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. There are a lot fewer pet projects than there used to be. And a lot fewer, as long as I'm alive, Kiss isn't getting in people involved.
Well, we'll sort of see. This is the first one under the new regime. I'm blanking. I should know the name of the new chairman, and I'm blanking on it now. I could picture him in my head because it's always an old white guy.
Well, you're the only chairman anyone on this podcast really cares about anyway.
I appreciate that very much. So I'm going to close off with an announcement. I haven't put this online yet, but speaking of pet projects, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame will be announcing tomorrow our class of 2019. I know it's a little bit later, but I'm a busy guy. Actually, that really doesn't fit. If I live in the Caribbean, doesn't mean I'm not that busy. But yeah,
all I know about the Caribbean night comes from Red Stripe commercials. So
yeah, well, when you get down here, I'll introduce you to Banks and Deputy, which is the two beers I frequent a bit.
So are you making the announcement? Are you making the announcement live here on podcast, or just come out later?
Well, it's going to come out later, so people will see that first before they hear this. But yeah, I'll make that announcement now. And Rocky's sweeping half of the induction class.
Not surprising, seeing as Rocky himself was the unanimous. We're not going to have a vote on a Rock Hall because Rocky's just going to win. Or I'm sorry, on a Fictitious Athlete Hall because Rocky's just going to win, so it's going to make him first class. So it's not surprising that the rest of the people from what are we, a double trilogy now? Are getting involved in getting in. So.
Yeah, so because Apollo is in the second class, and now two of his opponents, Ivan Drago, Clubber Lang, have been voted in.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Those are two of the most iconic movie characters, bad guys, of all time. I mean, Ivan Drago's "I Must Break You," combined with his "He Is a Machine," are two of the most iconic lines in any sports movie. So.
Not that I can. What's your favorite Clubber Lang quote?
So I'm automatically going to 18.
That'll work.
I don't actually think I can remember. I haven't seen Rocky 3 in a long time, so I'm having trouble coming up with a Clubber Lang line off the top of my head.
I think for me it's two. Prediction, pain. And then the other one is when he's confronting Rocky, actually at the perfect right in Philadelphia, when they're opening up the statue or they're unveiling the statue that the city of Philadelphia would later say, "No, let's keep it right here."
Mm-hmm.
And he goes to Rocky's wife. "I bet you dream of a real man like me." Sort of goaded him and got the fight.
Yeah. Well, that one always makes me think of Drederick Tatum in the Simpsons saying, "I'm going to. I really like Homer, but I'm going to make a orphans of his children." And he's married, and he says, "Yes, but I suspect she would die of grief." I just always, for some reason, all the Clubber Lang lines just go to Drederick Tatum in my head. So
Drederick Tatum. I love that bit too. And Drederick Tatum's getting out of prison, and he's taking revenge out on Homer Simpson.
Yeah. At some point, Drederick Tatum is going to be in this hall as well, but I think we're a couple years away from that. So is that all from the Rocky universe we have, or is there anybody else?
There's one more, but I'll get to that after, because the third athlete is the first pool player, Fast Eddie Felson.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one I voted for every single year. So I'm glad to see Fast Eddie getting over into the athlete hall.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting because he's a finalist, but he wasn't a finalist last year, and he was a finalist in the first year. So He's one that's just sort of like been up, down, depending on how people are voting. The one who's been a finalist every single year but hasn't got through, actually didn't even do that well, was Al Bundy, which is a little surprising.
Yeah, I've never voted for Al Bundy because I don't necessarily think of him as an athlete. I know he is, but that's not necessarily what he's kind of known for in my head. So, Bundy's been a finalist every year, right?
Yeah,
this is
every single year.
Fifth year?
Yeah, this is the sixth year.
So fifth year of voting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I mean, the fact that he falls in The Color Money is just a great film. So, I'm sorry, not Color Money, The Hustler. I'm sorry, I said the wrong one. There are only two pool movies, and I picked the wrong one in my head.
Color of Money wasn't so bad if you can sort of like get past Tom Cruise's shitty acting.
Wow. Isn't that basically the definition of a Tom Cruise movie?
Most movies. Although I rewatched Rain Man the other day, and actually I thought in that one he wasn't too bad.
Well,
but
I haven't seen Rain Man in probably half a decade at least at this point, so I'd have to be reminded.
Yeah, I like how sort of like Tom Cruise and Will Smith have taken on the Charlton Heston role in their life now. Sort of like the second half of their career, sort of like going all in on sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after such a wonderful sci-fi film as War of the Worlds, could you blame Tom Cruise?
What was the last thing he just... Well, what's the next one coming out, though? Top Gun 2?
Yeah, I think it's Top Gun 2. Let's do an IMDb research. Anyway, well, I'll do that while you go through the rest of the class. So we can keep your half hours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've already passed the half-hour thing I wanted to allot this to. So, two contributors from the Rocky universe, Adrian Balboa, finally in.
Mm-hmm.
That one was a long time coming. Always a finalist.
Yes, the ultimate wet blanket girlfriend from any TV show or from any movie. She's as much a part of the cinematic universe of Rocky as anyone, and it's not surprising because Mickey's in too, right?
Mickey is in
already.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, unless we're going to go to Adonis Creed, I think we've got with the three of them in, we've got pretty much everybody covered from that series.
Adonis gets some decent votes, and the only other one that I wouldn't mind seeing if he gets in, it would be Paulie.
Oh yeah, right.
I think, but once we get to Spider Rico, then I think we're sort of really drudging the who you can vote for. He will be a preliminary candidate for 2020 again. And,
all right.
Yeah.
When are those going back up?
It's up now.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool.
And the second one from your hometown, maybe a place you might have frequented, where everyone knew your name. Coach Ernie Pantuso from Cheers.
I'm excited about that. I've been to the Cheers bar many times. A story I don't often tell. We once in summer camp did a skit on stage of the Cheers gang when I must have been 7 or 8, and I played Carla in a wig, which was kind of hilarious. But yeah, it's great seeing Coach. It's great seeing Coach get in. His getting in may have something to do with the demographics of the folks voting. They're all probably in their 40s and white like the rest of us.
That'd be my guess.
But yeah, it's cool seeing Coach get in. So
I can actually isolate the demographics, but I never do. I just sometimes I get a kick out of where people are from, not necessarily their age. And well, actually, I don't think I can. I can isolate by race. Maybe I can. I never tried. Although I've been getting a lot of weird traffic from Colombia. I can't figure that one out. I really have no idea why.
Usually getting traffic from Colombia involves a knock on the door from the Drug Enforcement Agency. So
that could be the next thing that happens. I've never seen that before. It's always USA first, Canada second, UK third. And right now it's USA, Colombia, and then Canada, and then Russia. Well, I expect that because I have to clean out like 30 spam every day. But that's another story. Oh yeah, so like
Yeah.
the amount of sort of like testosterone pills I have to wipe out of the comments section every goddamn morning.
Yeah. To answer your question, by the way, yes, Top Gun Maverick is the next Tom Cruise movie. But after that, we have Mission Impossible 7 and Mission Impossible 8 will be coming out, as well as a movie called Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat, and another one called Luna Park. So those are the next 5 things on his IMDb page between now and 2022. Top Gun Maverick's in post-production. Mission Impossible 7 and Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat are in pre-production for next year.
No Cocktail 2.
No Cocktail 2. Unfortunately, no Riskier Business.
Riskier Business. This time, there's more risk.
Yes. No Edge of the Day After Tomorrow. So.
And one more inductee.
Samurai.
Last Samurai. Yeah. The Last Samurai sequel would be okay. We thought he was the Last Samurai, but it turns out there's one more, also played by son of Tom Cruise. I don't know. I got nothing. So the last nominee, and actually I have to give a shout out to the webmaster who suggested this one because he wasn't actually a nominee for the first few years. I forgot all about him, and we put him on, and he destroyed every other. There's never been a bigger landslide actually in any kind of online vote I've ever done than this. Sport Goofy goes in as a veteran. Never even thought of it, which is sort of embarrassing on my part because I'm the one who comes up with all the preliminaries. But my great webmaster, Theodore Hildebrandt, shout out to him out in Winnipeg. It was his idea to put him on, and I thought, who's going to vote for this? Well, apparently everybody but me. So there you go.
I mean, Sport Goofy was a triathlete. He played baseball. He was, I remember a surfing video he did, movie he did. He's an all-around athlete. That begs the question, though. Are you going to do like Bugs Bunny coming up with him being the pitcher, batter, catcher, first baseman, second baseman, third baseman, shortstop, and the whole outfield, and the umpire?
I should actually. I do. I should amend the Bugs Bunny thing because he is a candidate for Space Jam. I never even thought of what you just said. Yeah. Of course, it's going to be Space Jam.
That was my first thought in putting Sport Goofy on there. Was like, well, there's a whole bunch of other athletes from those early cartoons that. I'm sure Felix the Cat played baseball at some point. So.
Well, I know Fritz the Cat played with a lot of balls.
Wow. Wow.
Younger people ask your cool uncle to explain that one.
Or a drunk uncle, anyway.
Yeah, well, I'll leave with this thought. I'm doing preliminary work on a script called The Life and Times of Uncle Creepy.
Oh, yeah, I think you brought that up before. Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, well, island living. A lot of these great ideas come to me these days. So,
if you got time to do it, go for it, man.
That I do. In between beer and Sprite, apparently. Can't believe I drank.
Winning combination.
Oh my god! I meant to keep a few for this night, but it's not my strength. So we're going to be doing this again next week, and it's going to be a big one. I think we should just dedicate that almost to the entire Rock and Roll Hall of Fame reaction. And just sort of, same time next week, Mr. Nolan.
Sounds good to me, man. Enjoy your Sprite. Maybe they'll get one of those. It's coming out here, actually, later this week. We have all these advertisements. If you like Bud Light, you'll like Bud Light Seltzer. So I don't know what Bud Light Seltzer is, but it comes out sometime, I believe, next week here. So you can always get yourself one of those in case you've ever wondered what beer and soda tasted like together.
I can honestly say that I've never wondered that. Bud Light was always sort of like my go-to cheap drink, but the only place that I've ever found that sells that here, it's the equivalent of $7 US for a can.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no. Bud Light was never the go-to for us. I think going to seltzer makes sense, though. They always talk about how drinkable they are because you know what else is drinkable? Water. Water is also drinkable. And
I know, but it's
like that old joke goes. The old joke goes, how is drinking Bud Light like having sex in a life raft? They're both fucking too close to water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway. All right, dude. I'll same bat time next week, and we'll talk and hopefully be excited about who they put in, and not find out that they only inducted one person and everyone else is musical excellence. So
it could happen.
You can't put anything past the Rock Hall. You just absolutely never know what crazy thing you're going to do. Because like you talked about how we feel like the NFL has kind of cleaned up its act and done a good job with the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
The Rock Hall's marginally done that, but they're still capable of incredible acts of what the hell. So
Smokey Robinson could get in just for a Time Life appearance. For a second induction. I mean, that is completely possible.
Yeah. Well, they finally put the Miracles in a few years ago, but yeah, it's you just absolutely never know with these guys. Anyway, dude, I'll talk to you next week.
All right, take care.
Bye.